1 in 4 Canadians are what we call food insecure, 25%. Does that feel right to you in Canada? Let's unpack some of that. Here to discuss it with me is Jasmine Ramze Rezaee, Director of Policy and Community Action at Right to Food. Thanks so much for being here, Jasmine. How are you?
Hi, I'm pretty good. How are you this morning?
I'm really good, thanks. What can you tell? Well, let's start here. What is food insecurity? What qualifies as that?
Yeah, food insecurity is kind of a spectrum. It's a category of like marginal, moderate, and severe. So it's kind of classified as a spectrum of essentially hunger. Marginal being, folks worrying about running out of food or having a limited selection of food due to a lack of money. And the more severe form of food insecurity, referring to missing meals, reducing food intake, or skipping meals completely and going days without food. So it is about hunger, essentially.
Okay, and that number 1 in 4 for a place like Canada, that number feels high to me. Is that high?
Yeah, I mean, it is high. It's disturbing, frankly, and it's on the rise. It's been increasing steadily from even before the pandemic, but especially since the pandemic. And the latest data, CIS data, which is what this is based on, it's national statistical data, is that it's affecting 25.5% of households in Canada, approximately 1 out of 4 Canadians, including 2.5 million children. So it's really concerning to us, and it should be concerning to all folks who care about their neighbors, and who want everyone to sort of do well. And I think what's also really concerning is that most folks who are food insecure actually have employment as their main source of income. So these are folks who are working, making a paycheck and still experiencing some level of food insecurity. So we're really concerned about the rising rates of food insecurity and poverty and inequality in our country.
So is this, how closely is this tied to cost of groceries? That's something we've been talking about so much over the last year. Inflation, cost of groceries going up. These two must be correlated or tied together in some way, right?
Yeah. I mean, grocery prices have increased 27% since 2020, and they're expected to increase approximately another $1,000 for the average family next year, which is really concerning. So we know that the price of food is going up, and definitely part of the food insecurity rate could be explained by that, but not entirely. It's also about wages not being able to keep up. It's also about benefits of social programs being inadequate and not keeping up with the general cost of living. It's also housing prices, right? Just rent and mortgages having gone up so much over the past couple of years, and there being no real increase in real wages to account for that. So we're finding that more and more households and just average folks, working for a paycheck, really struggling to make ends meet at the end of the month, and it's concerning.
So tell me about the work that you do at Right to Food. What is that, and how are you guys trying to help this issue?
Yeah. So Right to Food is a national nonprofit. We combine, really dignified food programming with systemic advocacy to reduce food insecurity at its roots. We're connected to a network of 450 partners across the country. And in my role, we also engage in a lot of systemic advocacy work. For example, some of the things that we're calling for is a groceries and essentials benefit, which would be a program that would provide $150 per adult, $50 per child per month, and that would flow to 9.5 million lower-income households in Canada. We're also calling for things that the government has already kind of acknowledged that they need to do, like modernizing employment insurance and, improving the adequacy of certain programs like the Canada Disability Benefit. And so we're thinking that charity can only solve part of the food insecurity crisis, right? Ultimately, we need strong government programs and a strong social safety net to make sure that people don't fall through the cracks when times get tough, and also to ensure that these trends, that there's a plan to address these trends so that next year, you and I aren't talking about even higher rates of food insecurity and poverty, because it is really concerning when the middle class is being squeezed in this way, and when the poor are even poorer today than they were, say, 10 years prior.
Yeah, it feels like we have been trending in that direction. You know, we talk about inflation and, you know, things that seem common now probably weren't common, like people who have jobs and have homes and are gainfully employed not being able to afford enough food. Do you think that we have reached the bottom of this, or are things going to get worse before they get better?
Well, you know, I don't have a crystal ball. And it is my hope that with the right kind of government intervention that we could reverse this trend. Unfortunately, you know, without a plan, and the recent federal government suggests, the recent federal budget suggests that there is really no plan to address this, I fear that the situation is only going to get worse. And so that is really a concern of our organization. But I know for so many folks who care about, again, their community members, their neighbors, this is affecting a large tract of Canadians of a variety of backgrounds. And you know, it is about trying to look out for one another, but also to call for a social safety net that actually works. And, you know, and that needs to be coupled, too, with, like, labor market conditions that improve and wages that are reflective of the cost of living, right? And so, you know, there's definitely a disconnect between minimum wage and the living wage, and we're seeing greater precarity within the labor market as well. And so I fear that the situation could get worse, but I'm hopeful that with the right kind of programs and initiatives, we could see an improvement. And that's what history suggests, right? That these situations are not intractable social issues. With the right kind of intervention, they can change.
I appreciate that take so much, because I think you have to start from a place like that. Jasmine, where can people go if they want to find out more, or even what can people do in their own lives if they want to help get us back on track and help move the needle in the right direction here?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, get involved in whatever way you can, whatever you have the capacity to do. Visit our website, righttofood.ca. You know, we have campaigns and petitions, and there are different ways you can get involved in that way. I mean, folks are involved with their local food banks and whatever speaks to you. But and also recognizing that, you know, charity and goodwill, personal goodwill alone isn't going to solve this, right? Like, you know, that we need to write those petitions and make those phone calls and try to hold government accountable as well to uphold the right to food. It's a human right, actually. And so the government does have an obligation to try to uphold some of these human rights that it has agreed to in principle.